It's 3 p.m. and we are delighted to welcome you to another insightful session of Connecting the Dots. First and foremost, our heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speakers for joining us today and contributing their valuable perspectives to this panel discussion. Ms. Muskan Agarwal, Treasury at Zepto, Mr. Sanjay Patni, Associate Director and National Head, Institutional Sales at Mirai Asset Managers India Private Limited, Mr. Aditya Hegde, Co-founder and Finance Director at Aethon All Terrain Private Limited, Ms. Charu Garg, Director Finance at SanDisk, and Mr. Abhay Maheshwari, Founder and CEO at ASM Wealth. A warm welcome to all of you. To know more about our speakers, you may follow them on LinkedIn. The link are shared in the chat window. On behalf of HRAI, I also extend a warm welcome to our participants to this session on the impactful topic, the importance of financial communication, bridging the gap between finance and other teams. For more information about HRAI upcoming events, please visit the links shared in the chat window. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Mr. Abhay Maheshwari, who will be guiding us through this discussion with his deep insights and expertise. Over to you, Abhay.
Thank you so much, Faisal. We'll just set the context for today's discussion, and then we will go ahead with talking to the panelists, followed by some question and answers from the audience. So, uh, based on the topic, in today's dynamic business environment, financial information is not confined to the finance department alone. Every decision, be it of sales, HR, tech, or operations, does have big financial implications. And yet, one of the biggest challenges that organizations are facing is the communication gap between finance teams and other teams. Now, this gap can lead to misunderstandings, misaligned priorities, and delayed decision making. Now, the problem is that the finance professionals like us, we speak in terms of numbers, ratios, and compliance, whereas the other teams are more focused on growth, execution, and customer impact. This, with lack of communication, can cause inefficiency, poor resource allocation, and even big missed opportunities. That is why financial communication has become a critical business skill. By simplifying financial data, creating a shared language, and fostering transparency, finance leaders can help other teams make informed decisions, drive accountability, and ultimately lead to sustainable growth for the organization. This discussion is highly relevant today as companies increasingly demand cross-functional collaboration, agility, and data-driven decision making. Bridging the finance business gap is no longer optional. It is essential for competitiveness and resilience. So thank you everyone for joining us. First of all, I would like to ask Aditya, being a CFO of an auto bank and also a co-founder of an agri business, that what are some of the common misunderstandings, Aditya, between the finance teams and other teams? Just set the stage of understanding the problem and how do you go about resolving them at a broader level. So if you could shed some light on it, Aditya.
Hi, Abhay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the question. See, financial misunderstanding between the ownership group or the different hierarchies is common because the interpretation and understanding of the key aspects is different. Say, for example, marketing team understanding about the budget is different. For the HR group, the understanding about the budget is different, wherein finance has a entirely different aspect of the budget, right? Interpretation is where the gap will start occur, right? When the finance team prepare the budget, normally, as far as my understanding or my experience is concerned, the budget has to be bottom up and then it has to come from the bottom to down. then the responsibility, ownership of the particular budget will lies with the particular team. The second misunderstanding or the miscommunication, what happens if the budget is allocated, they assume it is they have a freedom to spend, but the finance team or the finance ownership people will think, okay, the budget has to be closely monitored, it has to be spent in a proper way. If I spend 1 rupee, then what is the value addition that is happening either on the revenue side or the EBITDA level? Those aspects the finance team will think. So it is very much vital to make the entire organization or a controlling level in different administrative level. It is very much important to make them understand, to give a proper literacy about the finance terminology, right? For a small example, when I say transportation budget, people may think, okay, marketing guy spending a transportation budget is a different, and HR team spending a marketing or a sorry travel budget is different. They assume entire budget is same because we are spending it on the transportation, but wherein a person who is directly related to manufacturing or a revenue front spending transportation is different, wherein administrative guy spending a transportation charges are different. So at the end of the day, finance literacy is much important. To mitigate those kind of issues, it is always better to have a cross-functional training sessions or create an exhaustive chart of account to make them understand how the budget flows and what are the spending requirement. If I spend 100 rupees, what is the value addition should happen? These kind of education should happen at a very frequent level. Then I feel the communication issues will get resolved.
Understood. No, thanks, Aditya. That was really helpful. You mentioned that the other teams should also be involved in the bottoms up budget formation, and there should be either like a glossary where terms are understood completely and cross-functional training so that the communication gap is reduced. As a follow-up, I would like to ask Charu that considering Aditya's point that interpretation is a key issue and it leads to a lot of problems, how do finance teams go about training non-financial staff in uh, reading, understanding, and interpreting some of the financial reports and KPIs, and how do they collaborate, say, to form the budget so that the accountability can also be set?
Thanks for the question. And I think I would also thank you for inviting me to this forum, truly honored. And taking on forward from where Aditya mentioned that, the other team's involvement from the very start, for the financial process would give them some additional understanding as to what is the basis of all the financial reports and KPIs. I think that is very critical that they're considered as important stakeholders. Now, this term of non-finance staff members, I think that itself is a very interesting term as per me, because all of us are engaged in these activities for financial reasons, and finance is for everybody to understand. Most of the KPIs that you would see for various teams that they are responsible to manage are financial KPIs like gross margin, EBITDA, ROI, weighted average cost of capital, CAGR, budget versus actuals, and capital working capital management. If you want to look at it in more details, you can see that sales teams would have gross margins, DSO, cost of customer acquisition, quarter-on-quarter sales growth. Likewise, the real estate teams would have weighted average cost of capital, return on investment, maintenance cost ratio, cost per square feet. HR folks would have compa ratio, very popular term, ROI on training, cost per hire. And then legal will have opportunity cost, contract cycle time, and compliance cost. While all these KPIs are essential for the optimal working of the organization, but they have dependency on financial data,
Mhm.
right? As you can see that, gross margin is directly related to profit and loss account. Likewise,
Yeah.
DSO would have an arm on the balance sheet. Likewise, weighted average cost of capital would also have dependency on financial data, cash flow statement. So these are very critical in financial information that the non-finance guys need to understand. Not, I would not say that, complete understanding in Indian accounting standard or tax terminology has to be understood. But the basic understanding of all these reports is very essential for them to be able to manage their KPIs, above mentioned KPIs.
Right.
Now, how the finance folks can achieve this, I think very simply, how we do it is that we have small learning management system, audio and video trainings for non-finance folks, which we continue to refresh based on the requirement that the non-finance guys would have. Plus, we would do a smart sheet, a small Excel macro, which can be, fiddled around by these folks and practice their hand on understanding their KPIs. Sometimes we would give them some real-time data and ask them to work out on their KPIs. Apart
Understood.
from that, I think these days there are plenty of dashboards, like for budget versus actuals. You can see a real-time dashboard for a sales team or a development team or the business teams that they can monitor on regular basis. Likewise, there are plenty of Power BI dashboards which can be customized for their requirement, which can help them visualize their KPIs. But then, of course, all these KPIs and stuff, they are moving landscape, they keep
Yeah.
changing from time to time. So I would say that, a refresher training is a must once you have put this process in place. And for new hire, a knowledge sharing session at the time of onboarding, LRMS, like I mentioned, for constant references. And if there is any kind of major change, I think a workshop comes in very handy where you can look at what changes have happened and how it is going to impact the KPIs. And also kind of, give a platform for finance and non-finance folks to come together.
No, that's really helpful, Charu. You mentioned learning management systems, smart sheets, Excel macros, Power BI dashboards, how they could engage. I would, at this point, circle back to Aditya saying that what all is practically implementable for the small and medium enterprise. And, because it's probably not possible to do all of this for SMEs, right? So which all aspects are more practical and which can be implemented, Aditya? If you could let us know.
Uh, See, properly, rather finance team becoming a controllers, it is better to be a business partners, right?
Mhm.
Uh, at the same time, the entire other team member has to understand that they are business partners rather than controlling one particular unit. As Charu rightly mentioned, that everyone are doing at the common to achieve the common goal, because each penny saves that will add to the bottom line or to the top line, right?
Mm.
Rather than having the control, it is better to make them understand what are their roles and responsibilities, how it is going uh, to implement, or how is it adding the value to the organization. That uh, sense is much important.
Mm.
Rather than doing kind of a job, it is better to understand the business development, uh, the end goal, and the process of it. That is makes much easier, especially in the smaller or MSME kind of organization. The layer hierarchy and the layer are very narrow, right? It is
Mhm.
very much, I feel it is very much easier to implement those kind of scenarios rather than a very large multinational organizations. In multinational organization, it is always with the help of the dashboard, a clear SOPs in place, cross functional trainings and other stuff. It can be achieved.
Understood. Understood. No, that was helpful, Aditya. As you mentioned, I think clearly defined roles and responsibilities and just approachability of the financial staff, because the barriers are less in the SME, can lead to, in fact, faster training, and just reiterating that everyone is working towards the same end goal. Now just moving to Sanjay, different business, AMC business, completely based on trust. Especially now we see for the last 1 year, the market has been in a sideways trend. And in such times, communication becomes even more critical, especially not just with employees, but even with the outside institutional clients. How important is it, and how do you go about confidence building during such phases of difficulty in the markets?
Sure. Thanks, Abhay, for that question, because that's a lifeline. If I were to mention that, first of all, let me break that in maybe two, three parts. First, I think for me, when you started this conversation with all of us, I think you've been using the word called communication multiple times. Uh, as I always say, and I tell my team also all the time, I think to me, communication can be a tool to success, and communication itself can be a barrier in achieving success, in my view. Because if communication is transparent and very clear, I think it can bring lot positives. First of all, I think that's for me is communication. That's the way I look at communication. If I were to look at clarity in communication, I think that is where, when it comes to the relationships, the stakeholders, I think conviction among them is, I think, what will bring a lot of it in the clients as well. And simultaneously, it brings that confidence in the employees as well. Because if you are transparent in a communication, the message goes straight and loud and clear. I think it's very important.
Right.
At
Right.
times, at times, if I were to say, if your communication is bold, okay, and maybe straightforward, but at times that clarity in your communication actually provides that assurance, and also automatically eliminates that any conflicts or grudges which may arise. Because at times you have to be tough. As you rightly mentioned, being in markets, I mean, you can't shy away. You have to be straightforward. You have nothing else to hide at all. Also, I was reading some RBI report and all that. Wrong sell, wrong communication is a very well known buzzword. Okay, the world which you also belong to now. Wrong communication at times has a lot of short-term advantages, no doubt, possibly. But in financial world, it's quite common. It's a shortcut, but definitely for sure, if I were to say, long-term outcomes are definitely disastrous. I mean, and it comes back. It actually circles back to you. Now, let me move to third part of it, which is the financial communication. As you mentioned, with institutional clients, I'm sure last 1 year have been visible to all of us. It's not been easy, straight road, hunky dory times for all of us, with lot going around us for some time now. Uh, whether it's in India or geopolitical or trade related issues and all that. But being in financial market, as I said, wrong or a misleading communication can actually lead to quick results. But world is very transparent. Like I'm sure Aditya mentioned, or Charu also mentioned, I actually want to add there, because for a CFO, the world is so transparent now. They are no more number crunchers alone. They are actually much beyond that. They're very close to business people now, which they used to be generally a number cruncher, etc., and all that. And hence, for us, the world is so transparent. No way one can hide. No way one can run away. In my view, irrespective of market conditions, it's facts and data which showcases the reality to clients and institutional clients. And we deal with whom? We deal with chartered accountants, we deal with MBA finance. Okay, these are all intellectually intelligent people who have seen the world and financial on a daily basis. So, like in our sales world, we say you can fool once, You can't fool always, always. So that's very important part for us. But in the markets, it's very important. Now let me move to capital market side. That's even more important. In capital markets, where we live and breathe every day, I think world is so dynamic. Hence, there is no scope of wrong information. It's only facts which can actually take you forward. We have seen this situation evolving over a period of time. But the situation which was pre 2008, which is global financial crisis times, and beyond that, I think a lot of investors were not ready to accept even right communication. Let me tell you, I may be blunt in saying this, but right communication at the time was sometimes not acceptable to them. Of course, there's postmortem always, that's always there. But in my view, initially, it was difficult period to tell someone that this is what we are feeling, this is what is going on. But accepting that was actually very difficult, and that led to lot of losses in the portfolios, which maybe which could have been avoided, in my view. That's the way we have seen that live in those days. Even for internal employees, which you asked me the other side of it, I think once they know key facts about the products, about the financials, about budgeting properly, I think which will make them all already comfortable, and they become more planned. The execution becomes more smooth. I think it's a matter of planning. I think that is what makes a difference. And once the communication is transparent from internal side, I think that is what makes. So for me, a team needs empathy, maybe not sympathy. If I were to say that, uh, you know, if I look at analogy of that in the same thing in advertisement world, when we look at many examples, I'm sure all of us have used a brand called Raymond's, for example. That example communication says Raymond's the complete man. Simple line, a punchline, okay, which can talk about that you might still talk about a good communication, maybe. But similarly, when you look at cigarette in my hand, I feel like a man. Okay. It was a straight straight communication to many, but I'm sure the message was very strong. Okay, so communication, in my view, uh, I think it makes a lot of difference. One doesn't need to undercut. If I were to say, one doesn't need to do take shortcuts. We have seen many ups and downs in our career. They primarily happen because of communication. Hence, right communication always leads to advantages in the financial world, no doubt about it. So, in net, if I were to say, there are only three pillars to me: curiosity, let that douse the fire. That's important. The first C is curiosity, because the curiosity will always be there in the markets, in the clients and employees. Creativity. I think it's important that you remain creative, on your toes all the time, understand what's going on and take decisions. And finally, a critical thinking, because analytical, I think it's very important that you have to devise. Don't panic, don't take abrupt decisions and all that. So I think maybe these three C's may answer that in a nutshell. Yeah.
No, Sanjay, that was beautiful. The point that you made was that even during bad times, sometimes actually even the best style of communication can backfire, like the 2008 financial crisis or during the COVID, though COVID recovery came faster. And
Yeah.
during that time, you have to kind of make a decision that how transparent can you be? Because on one side, you
Yeah.
may lose the customer and you're answerable to your bosses within your organization. But on the other side, you can lose your reputation within the industry, right? For saying something which later doesn't prove to be true. How would you balance that and say, how would you say
Yeah.
something, put across the harsh reality in a manner which is much more soothing and acceptable to the clients, during such situations? You have to be honest, but you have to be tactful as well, right?
But I'll tell you, Abhay, uh, we have seen many clients losing, okay, due to our communication. Okay. But the loss was not an intent. Loss was that let the communication go right to them. That's very important, because if they understand, whether they accept or not, I mean, that's a secondary thing. But important is that if you hide and if you shy away in communicating with your investors, that will be even more disaster, because client will remember you. If you're right, if you are actually prudent in your advice, if it was optimum from their portfolio point of view, the trust will always lead to profitability. When I'm saying profit, doesn't mean money. I'm talking about profit, and profit is a relationship for me. Uh,
Absolutely.
that's advisory, and that's your comfort, which you always draw, in my view. So I think long-term advantages are huge.
Absolutely, Sanjay. And I think you will also start qualifying and filtering out the clients who are just not suited for you in a way, right? That is, the ones who are there for the journey for the long run will appreciate the qualities you bring to the table in terms of communication.
I'll tell you, let them choose us. That's always good. They
Absolutely.
will choose. They know how to differentiate between us, Charu and Aditya. They will answer that. They know they meet hundreds of people, but I'm sure they can definitely, they can differentiate easily.
Right.
Yeah.
No, thanks a lot, Sanjay. Now, moving from the AMC industry, which is looking at profitability, to something like quick commerce, which is at an inflection point,
Yeah.
and there is a huge amount of spending going on aggressively for talent acquisition and for growth. Muskan, I would like to ask you, how do you enforce discipline in such an environment, you know, and still come across as someone who's in collaboration with the other departments, right? Because the objective of a finance department will always be to move towards profitability, but this is the time to capture market share, and talent is not cheap in India anymore, right?
That.
So, yep, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Abhay, for this question. Before coming to the answer of this, I would like to throw some light on this topic because this is, very much critical as this is a between finance and the non-finance team. So, I mean, yeah, every organization, the finance functions plays a very critical role, not only in just managing the numbers, but also in, driving the business strategy. However, the most common challenges what the company faces in the current times is the communication gap between the finance team and the other departments, such as maybe operations, marketing, growth, or the product teams. While finance team often speak the number language, ratios, yields, forecasts, budgets, and everything, the other functions are, very much focused on the customer experience, on the growth, on the innovation side. And when the synergy doesn't happen between, these two teams, the misunderstanding arises a lot. So that's how the importance of this topic becomes so relevant. And in an industry like Zepto, which is a quick commerce and like rapidly scaling up, in today's environment, I think building this gap is literally not optional, but it is very, very essential. So, first of all, I mean, it is very insightful for all of us to, speak and communicate about this topic. And coming back to your question, you have very rightly quoted that quick commerce is indeed at an inflection point where the growth is very much rapid, the competition is intense, and talent is really critical. So that naturally pushes an organization towards an aggressive spending. And anyways, we are scaling up and we are into that profitability zone. So anyways, we are spending a lot. We are a cash burning entity. So the challenge for finance, especially treasury, if you'll ask me, is to support this ambition while maintaining the financial discipline. And our role is to, translate the business ambition to the sustainable financial outcome. It has to be sustainable. That means we need to enable the HR to hire the right talent, the product teams to innovate, and the business leader to scale without hampering the long term stability. So, if you'll ask me as a financial expert, I think we can enforce the discipline in certain ways. Maybe instead of outrightly rejecting a proposal of, hiring a candidate for a higher cost, we can ask the HR partners to bring alternatives, which will, shift the tone from controlling to collaboration, and we won't come across as a hurdle to their function, and we won't let them down. So there is always a round of communication and dialogues between the HR teams and the finance teams. We can also, thinking to place the finance partners alongside HR, product, and the other business leaders in the decision making forums. So though, the early involvement of finance may avoid surprises and may reduce the friction between the two teams. So there's always a scope of alternative and the dialogue making, which I mentioned. I think that's the right way how finance has to manage the balance between the two teams. Ultimately, aggressive growth and financial discipline are not contradictory as per me. They need to, complement each other. In quick commerce, where, every rupee of capital must work hard. I mean, finance role is to ensure that this ambition is matched with sustainability. So if non-finance team sees finance as the partners that enables smarter and faster scaling, then rather than slowing down, then I think we have definitely succeeded as a finance team in an organization.
No, that was great, Muskan. What you mentioned is that the ambition needs to be translated into sustainable outcomes, and the tone needs to be shifted from a commanding to a collaborative tone. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, one of the things I've seen is that many of us finance professionals, we have historically not been so good at communication and the softer aspects. Now, how would you see that changing, or what are the ways that finance professionals, especially the ones without MBAs, can really develop their softer aspects? Because I think the interpersonal connection between people is what can foster this much better.
True that. I mean, I completely resonate with your thoughts, aware, and I think in today's environment, everybody is very much aware of the importance of a good communication. As Sanjay has very rightly quoted the whole answer towards communication and how important it is. In fact, in every industry. So in a startup as well, now finance, as I mentioned, is not just limited to just the finance functions. Everybody has to be in touch and in communication with every other department, and that's how a company or an organization grows multifold. So by speaking and by being very much open about your thoughts, very much crisp and clear in what exactly you want as an outcome from an other team or a non-finance team or a finance team, otherwise, that has to be very very crisp and clear, and the vision which the company holds for the company, that everybody has to resonate with that and work along with that. So I feel that, I mean, putting across your point very clearly and having the outcome set is very very important, and that's how people can achieve this softer skill, and the work will not be complicated and be very much more easy for everyone.
Absolutely,
Abhay, can
absolutely.
I add something here?
Sure, definitely, Sanjay. Absolutely.
Uh, See, I well privileged and lucky to work with a lot of startup companies. Okay, they have relationships with us pan India. When I meet them, uh, I mean they are true warriors. I can tell you that for sure. Reason being, they know how to make more mistakes uh, and lesser of success. Okay, but they still have the ability to come out and continue to experiment and continue to move forward, because when we go to their offices, you'll find an average population of 25 years age. Okay, so obviously the experience is not backing them, and what they're trying to achieve is a gross margin value, or their terminology is what they're looking at is way different than a normal corporate maybe. And I'm sure Charu and Aditya will resonate what I'm saying, because that is where, but
Certainly.
they have the ability to sort of collaborate, the young minds together sitting there, and 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 more so, when earlier Charu talked about and Aditya talked about, their data is moving so fast on a platforms today. It's so important to accept, absorb, analyze, and take decisions. And there are chances of going wrong are very high. Okay, and you're collaborating and communicating with all other teams, every team actually. So I think it's a world which I always admire, and I think I'll be keep learning from them actually, as and when I meet them. Yeah.
No, absolutely, Sanjay. I think just the ability to make mistakes and the freedom to make mistakes, I think
Yeah.
it will
Correct.
it is laying the foundation stone for our country for the coming years, to be honest, because this culture
Yeah.
was really not prevalent in India until just a few years ago.
Yeah.
And this will drive the economy in a big way, and it will create more entrepreneurs and risk takers.
Absolutely.
So,
That's very true, Abhay.
yep.
Yeah.
Just circling back to Aditya again. So, Aditya, now, uh, just how would you create a culture of openness and transparent communication, say, in an organization? Because I know you're a co-founder also, not just, from the finance side, but as a co-founder or the founder or the CEO, someone leading a company, how would you foster a culture where there's trust and openness between various departments, not just finance and others?
The major challenge where I am facing is we have about 120, 130 odd engineers, and the average age of those engineers between 22 to 27, right? They
Mhm.
are fresh out of colleges, and their mind is dissipated, right? I want to do this. I have to here. I have to be there, everywhere. That kind of a uh, potential and a power. It is very hard to make it concentrate where it is required, right? me coming with the 24, 25 years of experience, uh, balancing that, we have to go to their level to understand what exactly they are trying to communicate, right? They are comes with very good plan, but sometimes those plan may be relevant to the organization, may not be, but it is upfront on the face to tell it is not relevant. It would create a disaster or negative impact in the mind of a young person, right?
Mhm.
It is very much, I feel it is very much important to uh, listen to them first. It may take hours together, then they try to put it and try to uh, put those communication in a proper way, channelize it, then where they are going wrong or how it can be converted to a plan and make it success. That kind of communication is very much important, rather than making, okay, I am from this department, you are the from the other department. It is better to have a consortium of the entire organization is really
Mhm.
good, because sometimes as Muskan said, right, finance team is no more sitting in a corner and doing number crunching, right? Many people comes to me saying, okay, I'm not able to identify proper sales channel, how can can you help me? HR
Mhm.
is coming and I'm not able to identify a right candidate for this particular position for a marketing or sales. How can you help
Mhm.
me? So it is
Mhm.
kind of a finance department or a team has become kind of a multi-functional, right?
Mhm.
They are like a uh, blood vessel, right?
Mhm.
They have to one hand they have to manage the proper funding, but they should make sure that the salaries goes on time, the statutories will be taken care on time, the legal is addressed. At the same time, the proper channels has to be managed within the organization to the stakeholders, to the investor, customers. A right kind of a communication, proper and uh, true communication is very much important.
Mm. Yeah. Thanks, Aditya. I think that makes sense, because there's the age gap, which also causes a communication gap if the leadership is in a particular age and most of the staff is of a different age, a lot of energy. And again, that's where I'll come back to Muskan. Now, in a startup, obviously, we would think that the age gap is not much. I think most of the people would be in their 20s, early 30s, but still the people in the finance department have to have relatively more maturity because they have to kind of channelize the energies of everyone. And while they are focusing on their own activities of number crunching and compliance, they have to be able to, as I said, channelize and advise them on how a decision is right, even reject things with relative politeness. How does a startup like Zepto, which is really successful today, manage to get the best out of everyone, take ideas from everywhere, and really kind of dovetail in the right direction?
Oh, I think that's why the hiring cost is too high in a startup when a startup pays well. So I think that itself is the answer. But like jokes apart, I mean, as Sanjay has said, right, the youngsters are not backing up with a great number of years of experience, but they are very much mature in the domain they are working in, and that's why it is very important to hire a critical talent in a startup and to
Mm.
pay well so that they can also work well. And coming back to your point of how we can achieve that, Abhay, I think the most relevant part over here is to now understand the vision of a company, that where a company wants to grow, how it wants to grow, what is the runway, and what is the vision the founder holds for an organization. And you really need to resonate to that, and you really need to be ready to be out of your comfort zone, and you expect something great out of yourself as well, and for the organization as well. And that's how this all happens, and it is possible in a startup. Because if you'll ask me, obviously the average age for all the people working over here is 25 to 35. So obviously they don't come up with a lot of experience, but they come up with a lot of maturity in the domain. They are very much grilled over the years. I mean, for whatever number of years they have worked in. So let's say if there is an experience of 5 years, they might have worked like a 10 years traditional organization. So that kind of experience they hold. It's like just a multifold thing for them. So yeah, I think that's how they achieve it.
No, that is absolutely, that's so simple yet so profound that if you just keep reiterating the vision and mission and the runway, I think then everyone starts filtering their thoughts and ideas itself, and a lot more relevant ideas will be generated, and the channelizing will be much better. Coming back to Charu now, Charu, you had mentioned about using dashboards and a lot of technology. Uh, which are the areas you would say where technology really cannot be used, and human intervention will be needed? Whereas, which are the areas where technology can really automate a lot of things within the communication spectrum between finance and other departments?
So I think both aspects, the tech and non-tech, both are important. We have still not reached that stage, even with the advent of AI, where, the technology can still replace the human. So while we use a lot of technology, like, for all kind of communications that our finance team has with various stakeholders, we have some or the other kind of platform where the data is readily available for them to, look at, crunch it. If they have a query, then they can raise that query. It will come back to somebody who will address it in as per their own KPI and TAT. Like we have vendor portal, we have employee portal, where all employee information is there. If the employee is eligible for stock option, then there's a separate portal which they can log on. Um, if you are heading the, budgeting cost center, then you would have a separate dashboard that you can look at in real time and see how the data is flowing. You have payroll portal where you can see your pay slips and the form 16s. Then for larger projects, cross-functional work, you have the project management tools and query tracking tools. So all these tools are available. Besides that, whenever a large chunk of employees or number of teams are collaborating, then we also run Teams channels where we update information online, collaborate, ask questions, get immediate responses and all. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, you also have your data visualization tool, whatever you have chosen to implement. And with the advent of agentic AI, you have created the agents which can, download the data as per your requirement from the set data fields. So all that tech is available in most of the large and medium-sized organizations. But I would still say that, the personal touch that you have with, a face when you kind of, interact with a person, that is equally important. While we have all these tools, but we still need that soft touch for, sometimes relationship building. Sometimes these personal touches are also very important and go a long way in, strategic alignment in the overall company related matters. And sometimes it is simply that the data is too much for a person to interpret, even if they have access to all the text, but interpretation becomes very difficult for them coming from their background. So for all this, a human touch is very, very important. Finance, I believe, whatever said and done is all about storytelling. It tells the story
Absolutely.
about what was the vision and mission of the organization and where we are right now at that point
Mhm,
of time. That is what a balance sheet tells you.
mhm.
And these tech tools, though they provide a story, but sometimes it is a very bland story, right? Sometimes they will just tell you you have missed your target, revenue target, or you have spent too much money than you were supposed to have done it. But when two teams put their head together, finance team and a business team, and when they collaborate, that is when the layers come out as to what was the reason behind it. What happened? Was it external, internal, or was it just that somebody was too passionate to agree that, there was an error of judgment, or, this is not the product line that we should continue. So these are the discussions which a human can have still, and it makes more sense. I would say while everything is there, data is there, dashboards are there, but still a human connection is very important in communication.
Nice. Thanks a lot, Charu. Absolutely. Sanjay, I think you would be the best person to add to this, because I think you deal with human emotions inside out daily, actually, and all the spectrum between greed and fear and everything beyond as well, I guess.
I was reading an ad recently saying that we have hired an employee which will never take leave. It will be 24-hour working. It will be an AI agent is actually it is. And they were going to hire thousands of people like that. And that's what I just, when I Charu mentioned that, I actually remembered that company and ad, because this is going to change the picture. And well, that scares, obviously. But I also agree with Charu that there's a lot human can still play a role. So I think there is a lot, because whether you talk about quick commerce, whether you talk about softwares, you talk about IT industry, you talk about anything. Yes, there are some things, but finally, end of the day, I still feel that it's going to make the world more productive and more efficient. End of the day, in whatever you implement, we have seen a lot and lot and lot in technology in last say 30 years or so. But did anything disrupt to negativity? My answer is no. It always added value. It always actually made the world efficient and more growing at a rapid pace. So our sense is that every step has its own advantage. It's just about looking at that from that eye, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, thanks a lot, Sanjay. Coming back to Muskan. So, Muskan, even if in a growth first company like Zepto, the investors will be continuously demanding a path to profitability. Now,
Absolutely.
how do you balance the investor expectations with the reality of cash burn? Because this will be very different from internal communication and reiterating the vision and mission. These people will be just quarterly, asking you and grilling you based on the final outcome. And beyond the point, they may not even care about the story based on how long they have been invested so far.
I think that's a very interesting question which you have asked, Abhay, and very relevant in my space. Thank you for asking it. But being a treasury professional, I think, see, quick commerce is a capital intensive business, right? I mean, it requires upfront investment in supply chain talent and customer acquisition. Naturally, that leads to a phase of high cash burn. But at the same time, investors today want visibility on profitability, not just growth at any cost, that and that balance comes from the capital efficiency and transparency. So for me, I think transparency is the foremost thing into this kind of a very sensitized space. As a treasury professional, we need to be responsible enough for every rupee spent, and we should be able to make money out of money, and that is the job rightly of a treasury professional. uh, we must have a clear return metric on every rupee deployed and keep that transparency with the investors as well. So the goal is to just not just to stop spending, but to spend it wisely and smartly. In Zepto as well, I mean, we present investors with a clear roadmap on break-even EBITDA, which gives them the confidence that profitability is built into the model, right? Even if we are into the cash burn mode. So transparency build trust even when the burn is really high, while we ensure that there is, enough liquidity in the company and the runway to support the growth, and also align and sensitize the other teams as well on the financial disciplines, so that the investor capital is used very optimally. So for example, we focus on maximizing the portfolio yields on idle cash by bagging the best in class rates from the market. And in fact,
Mhm.
just to give you a live example, we did that in quarter 1 of this financial year, where we know where we have delivered the highest return on our portfolio, um, in comparison to our all peers in the industry. So at the end of the day, investors don't expect overnight profitability, but they do expect conviction in the path to get there. So by being transparent, disciplined, and responsible enough, and show capital efficiency to them, we assure them while we are, scaling fast, we are also scaling responsibly. Investors do see us not just as a growth first company, but as the one who is scaling responsibly towards profitability. Yeah.
No, thanks. Thanks a lot, Muskan. That the fact that you have to align and sensitize other teams as well as negotiate with third parties and kind of not just give them the hope, but have a clear vision and conviction towards the path of profitability. I think, as you mentioned, that would reduce and manage the heartburn of most investors. Now, I would open, keep a
Can I,
question
can
for
I,
all
can
the
I, can I,
panelists.
yeah,
Yeah,
can I add something, Abhay?
sure, sure,
Because
Sanjay.
when Muskan was saying something, I just remembered there's a saying in Hindi, मंजिलें उनको मिलती है जिनके हौसलों में जान होती है. आई थिंक स्टार्टअप के केस में वैसा ही है, इसलिए इनको हमेशा इनके हौसलों में बहुत जान है. एंड आई एम श्योर दैट्स द रीजन आई फाइनली आफ्टर टेकिंग ऑल द रिस्क दे एक्चुअली लीड टू. एंड इन आवर वर्ल्ड of financial markets, I think we're part of the snakes and ladder market, all the time. When you go to 99 and then you actually fall, and when you go, something goes down, you'll always come back. Okay. And something which goes up, will always go down. So I think it's a part of that. But finally, in the markets like financial markets, you'll always remember, they always say, put your client first.
Mhm.
And I think that's what Brian Adams was teaching since long. Everything I do it for you. I think it's only that actually. In a financial market, if you can learn that, I think nothing can stop you in any conditions and all that. They say that's called as a growth resilience. If I can
Mhm.
use the word, that is why.
Um,
Yep.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sanjay. I think, Faisal, we can open the floor to
I would
questions.
like
We
to add
we
something. I think very
Yeah, sure.
interesting point brought up by Muskan. I think when the story is not going up and when it's a difficult journey, I think that is when communication matters the most.
Mhm.
you know and I can think of multiple stories right now where we had been in a difficult situation, might not be able for me to share all that in the forum, but whenever from finance point of time we've realized that we are in a difficult situation, I think a very single kind of communication, that everybody speaks the same language. We do that communication regularly, on regular basis, and we do it very transparently.
Mhm.
I think that's what builds the trust in all the stakeholders and a clear path ahead of us that how we are going to come out of it or how we are going to resolve this for you. I think, and then constantly follow up on that path. Um, that is very important for a finance professional to keep their sight on and continuously work, whether you have an MBA or you don't have an MBA. I think communication is the key for all finance professionals.
I think not
So that
just finance professionals, Charu. I think
everybody.
in our professional lives or personal lives, I think every aspect of life, I think if we can't communicate properly, I think it will harm not just our work, it will harm our lives in all possible ways. Faisal, we can open the floor to questions
yeah,
from
we already
the
have two
audience. Yeah,
questions in the chat window. If you
Mhm.
can take that.
Just a second. So, first question is from Rahul Rajesh Shimpi. What role does transparency in financial communication play in building trust across teams? Sanjay, would you want to take that? You're on
You're
mute,
on.
Sanjay.
Okay. Uh, so I will go take a step back to answer that. Maybe uh, communication to us is more important, is consistency. That's more important, first of all, because a lot of time we keep changing our statement, keep changing our views, and we actually forget what we actually said in the past. What's important is there is consistency in communication, connecting in what you said, even if it is wrong, even if you've gone wrong in your communication. To err is human, right? As long as there was a rational and you remain, you still go wrong. But important is that is very important. Second thing, uh, in world we have seen in last 25 years, we have seen enough and more disruption around us. Okay, we have seen 2099. We have seen starting with IT burst when we started our careers 26 years back. We have seen 2003. We have seen 2008. We have seen 13. Then we saw 17, 20, and even now what we are seeing around us. I think disruptions are inevitable around us. You just cannot avoid. So what's important is to sticking to the right guns in communication and having the transparency that this is exactly going on in prevailing conditions, and this is how the outlook and the market looks like to us for sure. Third thing, if the communication is right and if you're actually saying correct in your way, uh, at least with all truthfulness, the client will always believe and they will have a trust. Even if you go wrong and accepting you've gone wrong, the trust will never be broken. That's important. Third, transparency will always lead to a greater relationship. So to me, there is only one asset: relationship and advisory. There's nothing else. Okay. When we work with the investors, I think relationship and advisory that goes wrong. Those are the two assets. Assets are not what you're managing. And if though that is there in place, I think automatically that will lead to growth, in my view. And obviously, what's important is when something that leads to growth will always be the brand image will remain right on top. The client will always say, uh, you know, Emirates said, don't fly, fly better. Okay, don't just fly, fly better. That's what Emirates say, right? As an ad. Why do they say that? Today, we don't mind flying with Emirates or Singapore Airlines maybe because we have that faith. So, in my sense, is the transparency is there in the communication. The trust actually builds to that. Profitability leads to that automatically because the client relationship will only grow. I hope trust that answers.
Rahul, I hope that answers your question. Anyway, since we are short of time, we'll just take the final question quickly from Nidhi. With the rise of data analytics and AI, how do you see the role of financial communication evolving now? Obviously, you discussed technology extensively with Charu and Sanjay. Muskan, would you like to take that?
Yeah, sure, Abhay. I think traditionally, the financial communication has been about reporting past performances through numbers and static presentations, PPTs, Excels, and all of it. But with the data analytics and AI, the role of financial communication is definitely evolving, and that too rapidly. So I think the shift from the backward tech tracking to the forward looking is the biggest example of communication evolving, because AI enables us to predict the insights that how it can be in the future, forecasting the cash flows, the demands, the risk, what's happening in the world all over around. And financial communications shift from what has happened to what will happen and why. So, I mean, with this, now the AI enables continuously monitoring. So, finance can communicate risk and opportunities better with all the dashboards and with easy visualization tools and everything. We can simplify the complex financial data for the non-finance team, which will also, makes and allows the HR or the product or the ops leaders to feel inclusive, and they can relate and resonate to our financial language as well. So yeah, I think definitely for finance leaders, this role is shifting, and the power lies not just in data, but in how clearly and you well communicate its implication across the organization. So yeah, the responsibility is also, I think, very heavy now with the all the data analytics came in the picture for all the teams.
Absolutely. Yep. So
Yeah, I would
basically,
like to
not
add
just sure,
something.
sure, sure, sure.
Muskan did mention, a lot of benefits of having data analytics and AI agents. But I think we have to be really careful, because sometimes at the speed of which the data is getting generated or the data is being presented, I think that sometimes gets too overwhelming.
Mhm.
And I think the kind of prompts that we are giving to the agents, I think that is something that somebody has to be very mindful, because I had a recent example where we were supposed to be taking a very big multi-million-dollar decision, and we were using the agent to do the analysis for us, and it gave us mostly the data was correct, but it kind of didn't take the initial investment into consideration, and the pace at which it was changing the numbers when we were giving different scenarios, sometimes you end up losing sight of the full picture. So the finance professionals have to be really, really mindful that they train their teams well. They don't lose sight of what is the ultimate aim of this and what is the overall environment in which this agent is performing. So all this is very critical for any finance professional to keep in sight. Thank you.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
Charu, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, just to conclude this with, AI and analytics will definitely do the heavy lifting for you, but finance professionals will always remain the bridge, that connects the data with the decision making. So, I mean, whatever, how much the, country evolves around the AI and analytics, but the human touch, as Aditya has also mentioned somewhere, I think that can never be gone. And that will be very much essential. And that's why I mentioned the responsibility will be huge after the AI coming into the picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think we CAs will have to do different kind of audits now, we'll have to start auditing the output of technology rather than auditing
It's
the
already
actual numbers.
happening.
Yeah.
This time in
Can
our
be a very
audits,
much
we
case.
spent more time, 50-60% time on tech audit rather than the actual audit. We actually did that this time.
I'm thankful I'm not practicing, to be honest.
I'm only wondering that how will you audit AI agents now? That's the only thing next one.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So,
No, even the CS will held AI also responsible if any wrong answers comes out.
yeah. Yeah, will AI be
We
correct.
need
liable in a court of law? I think those laws will also evolve in India. I don't think it's too far away.
you need to read
So,
the
Only the
ChatGPT
consequence.
history of every professional, I guess, in the coming times. Great.
yes, Faisal,
Yeah.
I think we are
Yeah.
done. Yeah, do you
Thank
want to
you.
add something, closing comments or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Abhay, for skillfully steering the discussion and ensuring a seamless flow of ideas and engagement. Thank you to our esteemed panelists. Your perspective have shed light on how effective financial communication not only enhances cross-functional collaboration but also drives informed decision-making and sustainable growth. The clarity and real-world examples you brought to the discussion made the session engaging and impactful for all our participants. We look forward to welcoming you to our next session on the topic CFOs in the age of AI, enhancing decision making with artificial intelligence on September 18th, 2025. With that, we conclude today's webinar. Thank you for being part of this journey. Wishing you good health, positivity, and success. Until we meet again, take care and farewell for now. Thank you, dear speakers,
Thank you
once
so much,
again. It's
everyone.
been a real
Thank
pleasure
you.
Thank you.
having
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a
Bye.
good
Thank you
day
so
ahead.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Thank you.